God's grace, grace and the pardon and cleanse within. Grace, grace, God's grace, grace that is greater than all our sin. Marvelous, infinite, matchless grace, freely bestowed on all who believe, all who are longing to see His face. Will this moment His grace receive? Grace, grace, God's grace, grace that will pardon and cleanse within. Grace, grace, God's grace, grace that is greater than all our sin. That is a, I love these old hymns. I do.
What a beautiful song. Okay, we've got a couple of upcoming events. Wednesday night events all resume on January 8th for meals at 5 to 6, Awana 6:15, Youth 16, and Pastor Mike's Bible study at 6:30. They all start at their regular locations. And they're inviting you to join them if you're not already a member. Also, the Scams and Schemes workshop on January 23rd. You might want to remember that. And we'll be telling you a little later about our games day that we have. We have some things coming up, and Pat's working on some things with Trish, so be looking forward to that. We'll get back to our normal routine with that. Okay, is there any announcements that any of you know about that I don't have on here? So we're all clear?
Oh, January 8th.
January 8th?
They're starting with the Wednesday night meals again.
Yes, yes. Oh, we have a flyer back there?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome.
Okay.
You might want to pick one of those up.
Well, there's only one.
Oh, there's only one.
But you know this.
Well, lay it down there, and if you have a phone, you can snap a picture of it.
Well, if you want to know what Wednesday night's meal is, chicken, mashed potatoes, gravy, salad, and dessert.
Ooh, wow.
Yum, yum.
And how much is it? Did they say?
$8.
It's actually it says
It don't say on here.
$7.
$7.
$7
Okay.
per person, with a max of $22 per family.
Oh.
And they've even got a QR code you can scan to pay.
Couldn't Harold really clean up with that with them 19 children he's got?
Goodness gracious.
Yeah. All
We're a
right.
family here. Does that mean
And we're happy to have Dee Dee with us this morning. We're so happy to have her.
I like that one.
Today also, we have some people who are having birthdays this month. We've got Jerry Richards on the 14th, and Nelda Newman on the 17th, and Roger Osborne on the 20th. And I think the only one of those that is here today is Jerry. So, yeah. So, do you have some words of wisdom for us?
Not necessarily, just love your wife like she's the queen of the house.
Okay, happy wife, happy life. All right, that's a real good wisdom. I wish Harold were here to see it. Hear that? Yes, ma'am.
But he will qualify that all the time with
But.
God first, but then I also love Tucky. Our dog.
Yeah, there you go. Put them in the order of they are, yeah. Oh my goodness, okay. Well,
you have to do that so that they don't think more of themselves than what you want them to think of. You know?
I'm very happy. All right.
What's wrong with that?
There you go. Well, let's sing happy birthday to Jerry and these others.
Wait a minute.
Anyway,
Wait a minute.
That last one was a lie. That's not at all what I think.
It really wasn't a lie. It was
I
just
think
stretching the truth a little.
I think of her
Misspoken.
as the sweetest one this side of heaven.
There you go. Thank you so much
That's
for
what I
that.
think of
Yes.
my wife.
way to recover, Jerry.
Yeah. Yeah, he got out of that one real easy, didn't he? All right, well, let's sing happy birthday to Jerry and these others. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. God bless you and keep you. Happy birthday to you. And many, many more. Okay. I had to think about it this morning, and I left my phone in the car, so I don't have it. But if I can remember correctly, it was, if you are praying, then God is working. So basically, that's what it is. Now, let's be silly for a minute. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Oh, come on, you do better than that. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Johnny.
Johnny.
Oh, not Johnny who, Johnny Meese.
Oh, I forgot my water. And I'm gonna need it. Yes, sir.
We were talking last week about where you could find that stuff online.
Uh-huh.
If anybody's internet savvy and wants one, I printed out that little sheet with those websites you can go to.
Okay, okay, if you're interested in the, where they found that information regarding the Red Sea,
Oh, yeah.
Ronnie's got a printout
Okay.
of some stuff that, shows, I guess you can go online to the website that he has.
That was
Okay.
Just pass it here, John.
Just pass it around for anybody. You know how to look up the web by the,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
by the what do you call it?
The URL. All righty. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. Don's over here. Don Moncrief. We got 3 Dons in here, so you gotta be, but from what I've heard, all 3 could go. And there's a couple of Rons, and I know a couple of Johns that can do the same thing, me being one of them. So I don't have to worry about hearing myself. But anyway, I hope everybody had a good New Year's celebration. I hope it didn't keep you up too late.
Fireworks.
Is it warm in here? I feel a little warm. I'm not sure. Is it warm, babe? Warm enough? Okay. I don't know how if everybody looked at the lesson, but I can tell you personally, this lesson really spoke to me this week. And let's get into it. Let me tell you a quick story about myself. I was pretty good in math. Well, and I still am. Okay. For me to get some of the math back that I had, like in geometry and trigonometry, I'd have to study and brush back up on it. But I was pretty good in math. In 7th and 8th grade math, I was a straight A student. 9th grade, I entered into algebra. No problems. My first test that I got back was a 32. And I knew it was going to be bad because, I don't know about y'all, but I always knew when I did badly on the test. Because I knew when I was guessing and when I knew the facts. And I knew it was going to be bad, but I didn't think it was going to be a 32. But you know what I realized? I had to do a lot of studying. I don't know if I just took it for granted that I would pick it up or what. So I studied. My next test was a 47. Okay? funny thing, another funny thing about this is that my friends, they had a similar results on that first test. They had like in the 30s and 40s. I was encouraged. Yes, it was still failing, but I improved. And I knew it was from the studying. My third test was a 70. Okay. More improvement. That was a D back then. That was unacceptable. Unacceptable to my parents. Did I tell them about my grade? No. What is it? Mama didn't raise no fool. She sit back and let Daddy do it. But it was so. But I encouraged them. Now my friends are still languishing back there in the 40s and 50s. But I'm encouraged, okay, because I'm realizing, okay, yes, you are having to work hard. And yes, you're going to have to get that grade up. My fourth test, fifth. The next test was an 85. Okay, that is acceptable. It's a high C, but it's acceptable. Okay, my next test was finally in the 90s. I was finally in the A, where I wanted to be, where I desired to be, because I wanted to please my parents. What I realized that a test, if I made 100 on a test, all that proved to me was that I knew all the answers on the test. I didn't know what I didn't know. When that first 32 proved to me, I had a lot to know. I had a lot to know and to learn until I got up to the acceptable grade that I knew from my parents would take. But the test was to show me not where it was to show me, just briefly to show me where I was strong, but mainly to show me where I was weak. Because then I had to make a decision. Do I want to learn and grow, or do I just want to languish back here and fail? God gives us tests. And I can tell you, if you don't learn it the first time, you get to retake the test. Or at least that's been my experience, that I had to retake the test. And I'd like to say at least I didn't have to take the test more than once or twice. We're going to find out in today's lesson, sometimes it takes us more than once or twice to learn the lesson. So, God has provided a way for Israel. God has provided deliverance for Israel from slavery. He provided an escape at the Red Sea and deliverance from Pharaoh's army ever pursuing them again. And so God is providing for his children. And when you read the background passages, the people are like a 3 days journey. And one thing about that 3 days journey, if you remember, that's what Moses told Pharaoh, we need to take a 3 days journey into the wilderness. But what that implied was, it's going to be an extended journey. It may take a lot more than 3 days, and it may mean we never return. And Pharaoh understood that. I think that's probably a lot of his reason for not letting his slave labor force go, is that he didn't want to lose them. But they're 3 days away into the wilderness, and they come upon a place that the people are getting, they're starting to panic. No water. And so they're wondering, okay, when are we going to drink? We've run out of water. When are we going to drink? What are we, where? And so they come upon a place called Mara. And I don't know if they named it Mara before or after, but it may have been before, because when they came up to this water, it was bitter. And it was so bitter they couldn't drink it. And the people started, they were a little upset. What do we want to drink? And God showed Moses a tree, and I'm sure Moses got somebody to help him. I don't know if he could lug that tree to the water, but he tossed it into the water. The water became sweet and became drinkable. God provided water for his people. And so he leads them from Mara to a place called Elam, and from there it's got like, I think it's an oasis. It's got 12 water spots, or 12 oases, I guess, all together. And it's got like 70 date palms. And so now there's no more grumbling. Why? Because their need has been met. And they're relying on the water and the date palms that God has provided. But I'm thinking, from what I'm reading here, is that they've come to rely on the gift and not the giver. And so God gives them, after he leads them to Elam, he tells them, he says that if you carefully obey, I'm sorry, it's before Elam, at Mara, he says, if you will carefully obey the Lord your God, do what is right in his sight, pay attention to his commands, and keep all the statutes, I will not inflict any illnesses on you that I inflicted on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you. And so, they stay in Elam, but God is leading them. Remember what God told Moses at the burning bush? You will know that I am the Lord when you and the Israelites you're leading worship me at this mountain, Mount Horeb, and they believe Mount Horeb and Mount Sinai are the same mountain. God is leading them into the peninsula of Sinai, and I do not have a map. Okay. Well, if you look in the back of the portals, there's a little map there. And if you look at there, you'll see that as God leads them from Egypt to Mount Sinai, they're going deeper and deeper into Sinai, and it's seemingly taking them away from Canaan. Now, God has promised them Canaan, but he's also told them that Moses told Pharaoh, and because God told Moses, come to Sinai to worship me. And so they're heading to Sinai, and now they're hungry. You know, I don't know. They had all their cattle and livestock, and I'm not sure. I guess they were saving that for when they do finally show up at Mount Sinai to worship, because when Pharaoh told Moses that he could take everything but their livestock, and he said no, because we don't know what we're going to need to worship. So maybe they're saving this for worship. But anyway, the people are hungry. So whatever food they had brought, they've run out. And so they start to complain. I remember when my brother and I were hungry, we would tell our mom, and she said, you old Israelites, thinking about nothing but your bellies. And so, that came to mind as I was reading this, that you old Israelites. Anyway, so he tells them that they complained to Moses, and Moses he listened to God at Merah. He didn't lash back at the Israelites. I'm so glad it wasn't Johnny Meese who was leading these people. First thing is, God called Moses. He didn't call Johnny Meese. And I believe, when I was young, in 7th grade, I felt a calling to go into computers. And I thought it was going to be a programmer. It didn't turn out that way. But the reason I say that is because I went over to see a science teacher we had the junior high. I went to Ross Sterling High School in Houston. And they had the 7th and 8th grade combined. And then later they would split the 7th and 8th grade to junior high over to Albert Thomas. But at the time, I had a science teacher, and he was teaching junior high in the morning and senior high in the evening. And I'd had a question. He didn't have time. He said, come over after school. And I always had an hour to wait for the bus. So I went over there in the afternoon to the senior high side, and there was all these little pieces of paper around. And so I picked one up, and they had a job fair at the senior high that day. so I was looking at that, I was going, painting, no. Carpenter, no. Plumber, no. EDP, electronic data processing. I think I can do that. That's air conditioning. So, anyway, that was my calling. And I did that for 35 years at Chase Bank. And I was pretty good at it. They don't let you hang around for 35 years if you ain't any good at what you're doing.
That's right.
So anyway, but God called, and I felt that calling from God. God called Moses to lead these people. He didn't call Johnny Meeks. And thank goodness, because I believe he gave Moses an extra share of patience, okay, an extra share of I'm going to say, of love. I mean, put up with the Israelites, what he put up with. What is it Paul says? God, love is kind, love is patient. You know, you start out with that love is kind first, and then you get to the patient. You've got to be patient sometimes to love somebody. Ask my wife. Anyway. So, anyway, Moses is listening to God. God tells Moses, I'm going to rain bread. Now, I wonder if Moses thought in his mind, well, that'll be interesting. Okay. Raining bread, right? So, let's start with verses 16. One other thing before I do start this is that God spoke to Moses and Aaron, and Moses and Aaron were speaking to the people. And right before this passage, Aaron tells the people, turn towards the Lord. Come to the Lord. And all the people turn, and they face deeper into the wilderness. And there is a cloud there, and the presence of God comes into that cloud. Now, I don't know if it that it lit up or if it became fire. But the people knew that the presence of God was in that cloud. And Moses had told them, the Lord has heard your complaint. He said, it's going to come bread, and I want you to know it's God. It's not Moses, it's not me, it's not Aaron, it's God that's doing this. Come to the Lord. And that cloud appears with the presence of God. I've been called on the carpet a couple of times. And if I had an inkling of an idea of what I was called on the carpet about, usually it was not something pleasant to look forward to. I wonder if the people felt a sense of dread when God called them to him. What's God going to say? I've heard your complaint. I've heard you grumble. Come to the Lord. What's God going to say? Maybe even more terrifying is what's God going to do? They'd been used to the gods in Egypt. They knew the fear of those. And this is what God says. Okay, we're in chapter 16 of Exodus. I was getting to tell you that. Exodus 16, verses 11 through 15. It's on page 57. Okay. And the Lord spoke to Moses, I have heard the complaints of the Israelites. Tell them, at twilight you will eat meat, and in the morning you will eat bread until you are full. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God. So at evening quail came and covered the camp. In the morning there was a layer of dew all around the camp. When the layer of dew evaporated, there were fine flakes on the desert surface, as fine as frost on the ground. When the Israelites saw it, they asked one another, what is it? Because they didn't know what it was. And Moses told them, it is the bread the Lord has given you to eat. God responds with grace and love. He could have responded with anger and judgment. But you know, God knows us, doesn't he? God knows us. He knows our hearts. And he knows that trust easily. It has to be earned. And it's not just one time and I trust. It takes a period of time for me to learn to trust. God knows our hearts. For all our technology, for all our advancements, the human heart has not changed. Not then, it's not different from what it was back in Moses' time, back in Adam and Eve's time. Our heart has not changed. With all of our advancements, we are still the same. I don't trust easily. They didn't trust easily. It takes a process. And if God had responded with anger and judgment, we'll find out later what about Moses, saying about, if God had responded in anger and judgment, a couple of things probably would have happened. Israelites would have thought, well, we've just traded one slave master for another, because they knew that if they disobeyed their slave masters, the consequences were immediate, the lash of the whip on their back. But God responds in love, patience. He doesn't want them to love him out of fear. He wants them to love him because they trust him, because they know him, because of what he has done for them, not to them. Because love and fear, is it really love at all? I remember, seems like, did you tell me one time that the kids were scared of me? And I think I said, well, fear works right now. In time, they'll grow to love me. Because in time, I was softened, but at the time, kids needed discipline. And so, I'll say it, I'm one of the best dads. But my kids love me, in spite of what I've done. So, but anyway, so God has called them. He has blessed them with meat. Now he gave them water at Meribah, made it sweet. He gave them water at Elim, and now they're hungry. He's given them meat. God has responded with patience and love to change their hearts. When I became a Christian at the age of 11, I wasn't much different from the day before. The next day after I was saved, I was still Johnny Mees. But over the next 60 years, I became the man I am today. God was patient with me. God loved me. Yes, Johnny Mees had to take several of those tests, retake them. But I am so thankful that God had patience with me. That he had the grace that he showed the Israelites. The grace, the patience he shows to all of us. So anyway, the quail must have been one time. And I like what they call, the word manna means, what is it? And so that's what the Israelites, that when they said, what is it? Well, y'all remember that comic sketch, Who's on First? Okay? Who's on first? What's on second? And I don't know who's on third. It's hilarious. I love Abbott and Costello doing it. It's hilarious. I'm good grief, anyway. It's like this. What is it? Yep. What is it? What do you mean, what is it? Well, that's what it is. What is it? Okay. Okay. Who's on first? Yep, that's who's on first. Who's? So, but, and I will go, let's go to the next verses here. Let's go to chapter 16, let's stay in 16, verses 16 through 19. It says, this is what the Lord has commanded. It's on page 58. This is what the Lord has commanded. Gather as much of it as each person needs to eat. They take 2 quarts per individual, according to the number of people each of you has in his tent. So the Israelites did this. Some gathered a lot, some a little. When they measured it by quarts, the person who gathered a lot had no surplus, and the person who gathered a little had no shortage. Each gathered as much as he needed to eat. Moses said to them, no one is to let any of it remain until morning. Remember the Passover lamb? If you didn't eat all the Passover lamb, you were supposed to burn it, right? God tells Moses, and Moses tells the people, gather what you need, 2 quarts per person. Don't let any of it remain until morning. Any of y'all like saving for a rainy day? I do. Johnny Niece would have been saving for that rainy day. I would have gathered, I would have gathered up. I would have said, okay, I'm going to go. I'm not going to eat quite my fill. I'm satisfied, but I'm going to save a little bit in the morning because I'm not sure about Moses knows what in the world he's talking about. I don't trust him anyway. Sounds like Johnny Niece when he's talking about Biden. I don't trust him anyway. Anyway, y'all should have seen the look Trish just gave me. Oh well, anyway. But when they saved it till morning, they got, oh, it tasted so good last night, I can hardly wait. Open it up. What in the world is that smell? Good grief, I can't get it far away. I mean, look at it, man, it's all mealy and it's wormy and, God told them not to do it. They learned the lesson, didn't they? Do what God says. God told them back at Marah, I love you, I'm going to provide for you, but you got to do what I say. Have we ever told that to our children? Don't go out in the street. Don't. When Sean was Trish and I were putting up wallpaper. And Trish wanted to cover the wallpaper out of the outlets with the wallpaper, the covers. So we put the wallpaper up, cut a hole in the paper, in the paper that we mounted, and over the outlets. And I'm putting up wallpaper, and I see Sean over there. He's about, 2 years old, babe? He's over there poking in the hole. And I go, Sean, don't do that. So I get up, I get off the ladder, I take him over to the living room, give him some toys to play. That lasts about 5 minutes. And he's back over there, and he's poking in the hole again. Okay? Sean, don't do that. Pop on the button. Put him over here, play. He's back over there playing in the hole again about 5 minutes later. I said, okay, let's watch it. Sure enough, and I grabbed him. But it was enough to make him start crying, and I didn't have to fool with him anymore on playing in that outlet. Johnny Niece is like that. Sometimes it takes me a bit to learn the lesson. And yes, God's loved me. He's warned me, don't do that. He warned the Israelites, don't do that. There's a consequence to that. And I'm sure that there's always somebody hard-headed like Johnny Niece. And they did it anyway. I wonder how close Moses was to losing his religion with these guys. How close was he to losing his religion? Said he got angry. He got angry when they did this. And then God tells them, hey, on Friday, Saturday is the Sabbath. So on Friday, gather up twice as much so that you don't have to work on Saturday, on the Sabbath. Gather twice as much. It won't spoil. It won't go bad. It won't smell. It won't go wormy on the Sabbath. Gather twice as much. And there are some that do. I'm sure there's some that went, Moses doesn't know what he's talking about. It'll be there in the morning. He's just talking. Next morning, Hey Judah, you got any spare manna? My back hurt yesterday, and I just knew there was gonna be manna there on the ground this morning, and I didn't pick any up yesterday morning. You got any spare? He said, sorry, Ben. I did what Moses told us to do, and we gathered up twice as much. I got just enough for me and my family to last today. But Judah, I'm hungry. My family's hungry. Looks like you're going to be hungry all day. So I'm sure that happened because there are people are like that, aren't they? You tell them what to do, tell them what not to do, and they do it anyway, or don't do it anyway. They got to learn the lesson the hard way, just like Johnny Meese does sometimes. But what's God teaching them? I'm going to provide for you, and I'm going to provide for you every day. Every new day, you do this, you go get your manna, just like I said, and if they waited too late in the morning, the manna would melt. So you got to get it up there early in the morning while it's fresh, gather it up, put it in your jar, make everybody's got enough, do what I say, and I will provide for you every morning. On Saturday, on Friday, pick twice as much. It'll last you through on Saturday. Sunday morning, back to work. I'm going to provide for you. You can trust my promise. You can trust my word. You can trust me. I've got to be honest with you guys. This next year has God has provided for me and my family. Sometimes there's a difference between knowing and believing, isn't there? And I know that God, and I believe that God provided for me and my family 12 years ago when we took the shop F&F, and God provided for our family through that shop, through the business we received. And I've been concerned this coming year because with the safety inspection going away, we're going to lose over a third of our income. $7 doesn't seem like a lot, but last year we did 7,000 vehicles, $49,000. I'm not. Don't pity. That's not what I'm saying. Okay, it's just a matter of fact. But I've been concerned about it. I'm having to relearn that lesson. I'm going to have to trust God to provide in the coming year, just like He's provided the last 12. I've got to learn and trust that He's going to provide from here on out. I see one way, but I know that Johnny Meese's ideas do not limit God. Okay? And it takes some time for Johnny Meese to learn that lesson. And I have to ask God to forgive me for. I remember the man when Jesus came to about his son, and he says, you got to believe. And the man says, I believe, Lord, help me in my unbelief. Lord, I believe, help me in my unbelief. Sometimes it takes Johnny Meese a little bit to get into the flow, just like it took these Israelites to get into the flow. We go out in the morning, we get our daily sustenance, we get our daily bread, and we trust God to provide it the next day and the next day. And you know what happened? The next 40 years, they did that every morning. They gathered on Friday for the Sabbath. Every Friday, they gathered twice for 40 years. We're going to do this for the time being. What they didn't know was that the time being would last 40 years. I didn't know when we first bought the shop that the time being would last the next 12 years. And whatever happens, it's going to happen at the length of time where it is for the time being, for the next year and for the next years to come. And I trust that. And I trust that. Just takes me some time to work through my unbelief. But you know what I found? God still responds to me in love and patience. It may be a Tony, you know this. Yes, sir, I know. I know. Please forgive me in my unbelief. Help me. And so, God is proving that he is faithful even when I am not. And I know he will continue to prove that. That's kind of crazy, isn't it? To know and yet not know, not believe. Is that the human condition? To know and yet still not quite know or quite believe, quite trust. I know what's happened in the past. I believe this will happen in the future. I just got to see it.
That's what you call faith.
That's what did Jesus tell Thomas? He says, "You have believed because you have seen. That blessed are those who come after you who will believe even though they haven't seen." And I've seen, and yet God in me still has a problem. Okay. Forgive me, guys. I'm good. So the third part here is, let's go to Exodus 17, 1 through 6, and I'm probably going into Lee's time here. But forgive me, Lee. So it's 17 verses 1 through 6. It's page 60. It says, the entire Israelite community left the wilderness of sin. Now this is a name. It's not sin like we know it. It's not the wilderness of sin. I suspect it's short for Sinai. But it's the wilderness of sin. And they're moving from one place to the next according to the Lord's command. The cloud by fire, the cloud by day, the fire by night. God's leading them. And he leads them to Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink. Okay, so one question. How are the Israelites going to respond? He's provided water, he's provided quail, he's provided manna. They're traveling, he's still providing for them every day, no matter where they are. God still provides. How will they respond? They camped at Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink. So the people complained to Moses, "Give us water to drink." "Why are you complaining to me?" Moses replied. "Why are you testing the Lord?" But the people thirsted there for water and grumbled against Moses. They said, "Why did you ever bring us up